March 1, 1994. The world was quiet that early morning in Phoenix, Arizona. 16-year-old Aaron Hart slept, unaware that outside his door, his family's dogs were whining, agitated by strangers just feet from his bed. When three men opened the door, Aaron jerked awake, staring in shock. Two were strangers. The third was his father, Clark Hart. Aaron could barely process the words he heard. "Aaron, I love you. But we have to change something." Dana and Clark Hart had always been proud of their compassionate son, who was known for his poetry and making sandwiches to give to the homeless. But recently, Aaron had changed. A new crowded school, poor grades, a late-night disappearance in the family car, and a brutal gang attack had left his parents desperate for a solution. Their last resort, North Star Pathways, a wilderness therapy program that promises powerful mental and physical transformation. Dana remembers a friend's son returning in a transformed state from a similar camp. So, with reluctant hope, they place their son in the hands of these strangers. Aaron, speechless, is forced to say goodbye to his mother and is led out of his childhood home. As the door closes, the Harts feel an unsettling silence. Little do they know that this goodbye will haunt them forever. North Star Pathways operates under the guise of healing and tough love, claiming that the hardships of wilderness survival can weed out bad habits. But within hours of arriving, Aaron's experience turned into a nightmare. Stripped of his belongings, he was given hiking boots that were too small for his feet, along with ragged clothes. The desert, beautiful and harsh, saw temperatures plummet at night. Aaron quickly realized he was unprepared. His diary, as required by the program, recorded each painful day. On the third day, Aaron wrote, "My stomach was burning, and I was shaking all over. I was hungry, but they gave us only rice and oats, cooked over a fire that we had to start without matches. I couldn't keep the fire going." Aaron's group was forbidden to eat unless they started a fire, so Aaron often went to bed cold and hungry. The small boots tore at his feet as they trekked over rough terrain. By the fifth day, he was limping, falling behind. His advisors grew impatient, calling him lazy and manipulator. Then came Primitive, a 6-week survival phase that began with a 48-hour fast. As the days passed, Aaron's journal entries became desperate, his handwriting shaky and seeping through the pages. "It was so cold. They took my sleeping bag. I tried to stay by the fire, but they said I wasn't allowed." He grew weaker, sometimes collapsing under the weight of his pack, but his complaints were met with only ridicule. The advisors were indifferent, believing Aaron was faking his symptoms. One night, Aaron was so weak that he could no longer control his bowels. He was embarrassed to tell his advisor, but the man sneered and said to the group, "Look, he can't even control himself." They laughed. Aaron's diary was filled with horror. "I've never been so scared. I feel like I'm losing control of my body." As Aaron's health deteriorated, other campers noticed his sunken cheeks and how he appeared to be in and out of focus. He had hallucinations, seeing purple flashes in the sky. He could barely walk, and his voice grew weaker. One evening, the program's founder, Lance Jagger, came to camp and asked Aaron to join in on group exercises. Aaron tried his best, but he could only do a few sit-ups before collapsing. His counselor, Craig, sneered and mocked him while the others laughed. Eventually, Aaron's condition forced the staff to radio North Star's EMT, Georgette. She arrived, only to dismiss his bloodshot eyes and haggard appearance as manipulation. Instead of taking him to a doctor, she left, promising to check on him the next day. The next morning, Aaron couldn't even stand up. It took him an hour to crawl a few feet from his sleeping bag to the fire. In desperation, he asked to go to the bathroom, but collapsed halfway. The staff were indifferent, joking that he would do anything to get out of the hike. Then a counselor from another group, Mike, arrived. He was shocked to see Aaron, covered in dirt and trash, sprawled near the bathroom. Aaron could barely whisper, "I don't want to die." Moved, Mike held a small ceremony, sprinkling healing powder on him. One of Mike's campers, witnessing Aaron's weakness, began to cry. When the son of the North Star co-founder finally came to pick Aaron up, he threw him into the back of the truck. As the staff laughed, Aaron's head hit the window as his body collapsed. Within moments, he was unresponsive. By the time they got to the hospital, he was pronounced dead. When North Star called the Harts, they offered vague reassurance that it had been a freak accident. They claimed Aaron had collapsed without warning, perhaps from eating something. But the Harts were about to learn the horrible truth. At the morgue, Dana and Clark barely recognized their son. Aaron's body was a maze of bruises, cuts, and open wounds. His face was gaunt, his limbs bony. An autopsy revealed he had died of a ruptured ulcer, treatable with basic antibiotics. He had starved to death, his body cannibalizing itself for fuel as his pleas for medical help went unheeded. The Harts, distraught, demanded answers. Investigators, led by Deputy Chief Celeste Bernard, seized Aaron's journals and read his harrowing account of his suffering. The entries told of inhumanity and neglect. Aaron had been deprived of food, warmth, and human kindness. North Star Pathways attempted to evade responsibility, accusing Aaron of manipulation and blaming his drug problem. But testimony from other campers and even some staff exposed the cruelty of the program. At trial, the counselors admitted that food and blankets were withheld as punishment. Georgette, the technician, was charged with falsifying her testimony, but her charges were dismissed for lack of evidence. In the end, the owners and counselors of North Star were given light sentences, probation, community service, and fines. They continued their work in the troubled youth industry, while Dana and Clark Hart took on a new mission, warning others about outdoor therapy camps. The Hart family fought to tell Aaron's story, sharing his journal entries and advocating for laws to protect other youth. Their interviews and public speeches painted a picture of the son they lost, a caring, kind boy who never deserved to suffer this way. Aaron Hart's legacy became a rallying cry against an industry built on secrecy and exploitation, a stark reminder of what can happen when the promise of tough love turns into a nightmare. As the screen fades to black, we are left with one final image, a single page from Aaron's journal, his scrawled handwriting recording his final thoughts.